Yes, guys, welcome back. Another episode of Teams Like Brighton. Richie, don't know about you, but I'm very, very happy. Very happy. We're through to the next round, and on paper, great draw. But let's not talk about the draw just yet. Let's talk about Stoke. And it was very much a case of it was a hard-fought win, but a win's a win.
Yeah, Brighton proved that they can do it on a cold, not wet, but cold Tuesday night in Stoke. It was pretty cold, but credit to the 1,000 or 2,000 or how many fans came up to Stoke because it was not the nicest eve, but they definitely deserved the win. I think there was a couple of sort of nervous moments maybe later on, but on the whole, I thought a fairly accomplished performance. Obviously, Dunk made his 400th appearance for the club, which is a fantastic achievement. I spoke to him after the game, but we'll chat about that a little bit later. But on him, obviously, it was interesting that of all the sort of attacking talent that we got to see, you've got Matoma, you've got Ferguson, young Buonanotte was given his full Brighton debut. Sarmiento played well, but it was Lewis Dunk of all people who basically his inch perfect pass to split Stoke's defence, and then selflessness from Matoma to slide it off to Ferguson to tap home. So, he really shows that he has many, many strings to his bow. He's not just an old school defender. He's a very talented one. So, yeah, it wasn't perfect. Stoke were definitely not the better team, but they improved, I think, in the second half. And Brighton were probably a little bit more disjointed. But yeah, the main thing is that they got the result. I thought Jason Steele was very good in goal. I think there may even be an argument to say that could he potentially put more pressure than ever before on Sanchez in number one? Who knows? Because he looked very comfortable at the back in terms of playing out that way, and that's obviously key to De Zerbi's system. So, but yeah, main takeaway is it wasn't the prettiest, but Brighton are in the quarterfinals, and that doesn't happen very often. So this is a really special time.
It really is. It really is. I completely agree with what you're saying there. I felt like Stoke were really up for it, and I felt like it was very reminiscent of a lot of championship matches I just remember many, many years ago, where it was just a case of on paper we were the superior team in terms of technical ability, but in terms of like the physicality, it was very match on match, really. That it was quite level playing field. I was quite impressed with the response from Stoke. Alex Neil clearly set them up well. I kind of rate Alex Neil, really. I think there's something about him that he can get to grips with in the game, and he reads the game well, and he can change the system up, and the players respond well to that. And we saw that in the second half. And there were a couple of chances where I just felt like this could be a bit of a sticky situation here, and a lot of Brighton fans might actually miss the last train back home if they took that gamble. But fair play to Stoke; they're really up for it. They were keen to try and get something going there. It's just great that we just managed to hold fire. I think that's credit to De Zerbi as well, taking the cup seriously and taking the opponent seriously as well, especially in the midfield. I think if we had anyone else apart from the Caicedo Mac Allister partnership, we might have been a bit in trouble. I felt like that was crucial to our performance. I think Caicedo done well to win a few fouls, and he responded well in terms of the physicality to it, and so did Mac Allister as well. So yeah, overall, really, really impressed with the game. It has to be said, and I think De Zerbi definitely set the team up well and responded well to Stoke's tactics as well.
Yeah, I thought just on Mac Allister, I thought that I don't think he's been at his best in the last few weeks, just in terms of really sort of taking the game by the scruff of the neck like he was, I guess, in maybe the first part of the season before the World Cup, and then when he returned back from the World Cup. So I think it was really good to see him adding a lot of kind of bite and battling qualities, but also really getting in the thick of it in terms of getting forward and spraying the ball out. I think that was really good for him. What did you make of young Buonanotte's full debut? I thought it was signs of promise. Maybe held onto the ball a little bit too long on a few occasions, but he does look like a classy player in terms of just the way he kind of glides with the ball, and it's such a sort of, it looks so natural that he sort of just scoots away with that sort of left foot of his.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent to me of how Mac Allister was when he first got the Brighton shirt on and got the first team duties from him, in the fact that he probably took 2, maybe 3 seconds too long on the ball. And, yeah, he won a few fouls from that. And he got a couple of challenges, shall we say, that's reminiscent to the phrase welcome to England. So, but the only way he's ever going to experience that is if he plays those games. And now it's the chance for him to kind of be like, right, okay, that's what I need to do. I need to be quicker. I need to think faster. I need to know where everyone is, rather than just look up, take your time, and then pass the ball, because that's typically the footballing culture down in South America. You could take your time, you're tested more on your technique or where you're going to pass it, and the defense guess. Whereas in England, it's typically very fast, it's very physical. So he needed that welcome. I think the 90 minutes, I don't think he was particularly great, but I think it was very much a case of, you could see he was kind of like, right, okay, he's thinking more, he's not sulking, he was just kind of like, here we go, right, this is what I need to do, and this is how I need to respond. So I think it was a much needed 90 minutes. I think it was quite a vital 90 minutes, particularly with traditionally a physical side such as Stoke. He needs to know that, you can play that style of play here and it's acceptable, and you just got to tolerate it. And I think it'll be interesting to see how he responds, but he definitely needs to be quicker on the ball.
Yeah, I mean, he's only 18, and De Zerbi, basically after the game, said, I think he played a good game. It was his first full game in another country, another language. I'm sure he can become a great player for us in the future. And I think, yeah, it is the future for the time being. But also, I think I think a result like this showed that maybe the Charlton loss was potentially a blessing in disguise, in the sense that it just, Brighton aren't underestimating anyone anymore. He says, hopefully, the view to the next round. But I just feel that they're not taking anyone lightly. It was a pretty strong team. You had the sort of key personnel there, the Caicedos, the Grosses, the Mac Allisters, the Dunks, Matoma as well. They took this game like they should, with the utmost respect, because this was a fantastic opportunity. So yeah, I think credit to De Zerbi for not just playing the kids or whatever. But obviously, let's move on. So the draw came in after a couple of shock losses. Obviously, Tottenham went out to Championship side Sheffield United, and then soon afterwards, the draw was made. And I remember I just saw the balls going in. I was like, oh, there's only a few left here. This is looking quite good. And then what happened, Tom?
Brighton of Albion versus Grimsby Town. Great. Absolutely. I think, do you know what? On paper, that is close to a perfect draw as you can get. I think the only way to make it perfect is if Man United play Man City. If the Manchester derby was in the quarterfinal. That I think on paper, and I stress this to Grimsby Town fans, I stress this to Brighton fans, I mean this with the greatest amount of respect. On paper, that is a great draw. But as we all know, ladies and gentlemen, this is the FA Cup. This is it could be the most Brighton and Hove Albion thing to happen for us, to miss out on Wembley by 90 minutes because we lost to League Two Grimsby. I don't think that'll be the case. It'll be interesting to see what happens between now and St. Patrick's weekend, which is when the fixture will be. I think at the time of recording, we haven't had confirmation yet as to ticket sales or when the day's going to be. I think this is the round where it's guaranteed to be on the telly anyway. So it'll be a Saturday midday or afternoon kickoff or a Sunday kickoff time. Actually, on the side of that, I think it might be either Friday or Monday because of
I think it's between Friday and Sunday. That's the period.
I think we might have to do it. Might have to be Friday or Monday because train strikes.
Oof.
Yes, killer.
Anyway,
so let's not worry about that too much. But look, it's on paper, it's a fantastic draw. We do know what happens if we go in there in such a complacent mindset. But we've got 90 minutes. We've got home advantage. We've got everything going for us, which in their eyes, they'll translate that to they've got everything to lose. So I think De Zerbi's doing well in terms of respecting the cup. If he continues to respect the cup in that same way, we could be in for a really good day out at another FA Cup tie when we welcome League Two Grimsby. It is the biggest gap in the league pyramid in terms of quarterfinal ties. So it will be really interesting to see how things go. But look, there's a guaranteed championship side in the semi-finals, which is exciting. You've got potential Manchester derby potentially in an FA Cup semi-final and FA Cup final, which, before the neutrals, it's fantastic. But for us, we are 90 minutes away once again to reach the semi-final for only the second time in the club's history since the 1983 Cup final. So, I'm buzzing. I'm excited. When we've taken the likes of Liverpool, we knocked out the holders, Liverpool. We've beaten high-flying Middlesbrough. We've beaten, obviously, Stoke. The draws on paper have been kind to us, bar the Liverpool match. And we've taken Liverpool when they were at their lowest as well. So we've got to really just take this opportunity as we can. If we can get another trip to Wembley, that would be a dream come true, honestly. I would love another trip to Wembley. I've always felt like we've got one trip at least left in us. And it's weird to say this, but to go in here now in the quarterfinals, and the bookies are tipping us as like the third favourite, granted by quite a gap because of United and City, but to go in there as one of the favourites, that just boggles my mind. It really does.
Yeah, it shows, how far Brighton have come. But yeah, for those who have missed it, obviously, Sheffield United versus Blackburn, so a championship tie there. Man City versus Burnley, so that'll be the return of Vincent Kompany to the Etihad. Brighton host Grimsby Town, who, it's very important to point out, shocked Southampton with a 2-1 win at St Mary's on Wednesday night. And then finally, Manchester United versus Fulham, so an all-Premier League tie there. So, yes, obviously, just to your earlier point about the draw, you can't control who stays in and whatnot. You just play what's in front of you. It has opened up, and this is a fantastic opportunity. Hopefully, Brighton won't be overawed by the situation and the opportunity that presents itself. But one man who I think will help in that potential, FA Cup run is Lewis Dunk. Obviously, he helped Brighton get to semi-finals in 2019, and I was lucky enough to catch up with the skipper on that cold night in Stoke for a few minutes, and I'll just read a couple of his quotes. This might get you in the mood, Tom. So he said, "I'm buzzing, very happy we got into the next round and we're one step closer to Wembley. It feels the same as the last sort of the big cup run they had a few years ago, but the club is in a different place. We are probably a stronger side than we were then. We go into every game confident, and we know we can beat anyone on any given day." So that sounds like he's quietly confident and very much enjoying the ride so far.
Absolutely, and he's got every right to be enjoying this ride. And he's played such a big role in our cup run as well. Scoring the goal, Granted, a massive and heavy deflection from Tariq Lamptey's effort against Liverpool, and just orchestrating a fantastic move to seal the club's name into the next round of the FA Cup. You can't go more than just saying like how much of a leader he is. He really he's on the front line with this club and with this side, and he's clearly determined to make sure that we can get there to Wembley. So you just know that you've got there a captain who is making sure that everyone's feet is firmly on the ground, which is fantastic to see. I bloody love Lewis Dunk. The guy needs key to the city. I think he just needs to have, exempt from car parking tickets. He could drive on, Brighton Beach. He should be allowed to bring pebbles back home. There, he needs to be awarded everything and anything in Brighton because, there's Lewis Dunk's one of our own, and he certainly hasn't disappointed us at all in a Brighton shirt.
And that's a great pitch. So if you're listening, Lewis, you're probably not, but if you are, please join us on teams like Brighton. We'd love to have you on. So yeah, another little bit. I asked him about his thoughts on De Zerbi, basically saying that he's one of the best Premier League defenders, and he was surprised that he hasn't had a move to a big team. And he sort of smiled and said, it's nice words from the manager. It shows I'm giving a good impression to him. But I'm a humble person. I take it day by day. I just try and improve. I'm 31, but I have many more years left in me, which is good. I feel good. I give 100% in training every day, and I think I can still get better. I pride myself on being consistent, and hopefully I have done that. Hopefully I can keep on improving. I saw that the club put out a video saying, amongst the teammates saying, describe Dunk in one word. And I think a few players had trouble with saying one word. But regardless of that, he's just, he just invites compliments because he's such a good player. But
can I just say on that, I'm a big fan of Webby's response to it, saying what I want to say, I can't say. He just moves away from the camera.
I think he does eventually say, doesn't it, about the old...
Yeah, big nose or something like that.
But yeah, Dunk himself said consistent, and I think that is key. Over the 400 appearances, he is pretty much Mr. Dependable.
Yeah, and he is, and I think during the early days of his time as a first team regular, I think he learnt a lot from Gordon Greer when he was club captain, and so the expectation there that Dunky as a young centre back then shows so much promise. Yeah, he had an error in him every now and then, but you can see now that it's all ironed out completely, and he sets himself up for that, to be an example to everyone around the team and an example to the youth team as well. I'm sure he's like the way the centre backs are probably setting themselves up. They want to try and imitate what Webby does, what Dunky does, even. So it's just amazing what this guy has done in his career. From his debut in Milton Keynes Dons all the way to now. Like despite a loan period, like he is a one-man club. I would love him to be that, but the purists will go and say, well, no, he's had a trip to Bristol City, but I still see him as that one club man because he's been in our books all this time in his professional career. So, Lewis, one of our own. You can't say a bad thing about him. You can't.
Unless you're a Crystal Palace fan. And then finally, just to add, I asked him in a little bit of a different question. I said, what advice would Dunk now give an 18-year-old Dunk starting his footballing career? And he laughed and sort of shifted a little bit uncomfortable, but it was like, I don't know, that's a tough question. I would say be yourself, be confident in your own ability, work hard every day, keep improving, learn from managers, and keep pushing hard. And I think that's just, he's a very good professional. And yeah, hopefully he can, look back on his career and go, that FA Cup win was darn good, but don't want to tempt fate.
You're flirting with fate there, Richie Mills. You're flirting with You're flirting with fate.
Oh well, but obviously moving on now. So there's not a particularly long turnaround for Brighton. They take on West Ham on Saturday. Obviously, we're going to get the inside view on West Ham from Football London correspondent for West Ham, Jonty Colman. So we'll chat to him in a little bit. But obviously, West Ham are, by their lofty standards of finishing in Europe the last couple of seasons, having a pretty poor campaign. They're down in 16th. They're only 2 points above the relegation zone. They did get a morale-boosting win over Nottingham Forest last weekend, a 4-0 triumph. But they gave a good go against inform Manchester United in the cup on Wednesday. But as we all know, Brighton are West Ham's bogey team. A very, very strange kind of state of affairs. They just can't beat Brighton. Tom, what are your thoughts on this intriguing matchup?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because if you went into the start of the season, you'll be thinking that West Ham are going to be one of the clubs that are going to be guaranteed to be fighting for a top 6 spot. And they are far from that. This is a side that are only a couple of points above the relegation zone. So while they might be happy the fact that Everton lost heavily against Arsenal, you still can't help but feel like this is a side with the talent that they have at their disposal. They shouldn't be down there. And while they have their little moments and glimpses of getting back into form, they just haven't been as consistent as they have been in the past under Moyes. So it's interesting to see where West Ham are at the moment. Again, on paper, you would say, yeah, it's a good 3 points, but this league can haunt you at times. And West Ham do have a good side. They do have a good side, and it's not like as if that they're out of place. They invested. I think they invested well in their squad depth in the summer. It just hasn't clicked for whatever reason. Why? I'm sure many West Ham fans will probably feed in and say why. But it just hasn't clicked in the way that is expected. And it seems like they've been found out in quite a lot of their tactical approaches. So that's been addressed from the opposition, and really Moyes just hasn't been able to figure out how to fix that quickly enough. And now they're in the position where they are now. It's a bit surprising the fact that he's stayed in this job, considering the rumours that happened over Christmas, the speculation in January, and that's all seems to be quieting down now. It's refreshing, don't get me wrong, the fact that the board seems to be very confident in terms of what Moyes is doing at West Ham, and they might just write this season off as just it's a blip, but we expect you to be in a much better position next season, which is totally understandable. He's been given time because of what he's done in the past. Having said that, for us, we need to take this. We need to take this opportunity big time, because I feel the defeat against Fulham is going to be significant towards the end of the season, unless we get ourselves back into a winning run again in the league. West Ham's coming up, we've got March isn't particularly a nice month. April is something else as well. Spurs, City, and Chelsea are all in that mix, and Forest away. Again, they're not easy fixtures, and the more we approach the business end of the season, when there's plenty at stake, when you're facing teams in the European race, when you're facing teams in the title race, and you've got people in a relegation scrap, there's no match approaching the end of the season where one team hasn't got anything to play for. For once, we have a lot to play for, and for a long time, West Ham have found themselves in a relegation scrap battle. That there's nowhere where just one team is fighting for something. I think, if I remember this correctly, going into our fixture list until the end of the season now, and we've got to make sure that momentum's with us, not just from the FA Cup, but in the Premier League as well, because I want Europe.
Yeah, it's a good point about Brighton can't afford to really stand still. There's a time when Liverpool have won 3 of the last 4. They're now 6, so they've overtaken the likes of Brentford, and Fulham and Brighton. Brighton do have games in hand, but those games in hand don't mean anything if you don't win them. So Liverpool are now 4 points clear of Brighton, but Brighton have 2 games in hand and 3 games in hand on Fulham. Before the sort of international break in late March, they've got some really there's definitely some winnable games. Obviously, West Ham coming this weekend. They've got Leeds United away, who are obviously struggling. They've got Palace at home, and that that's a game they should win. But obviously, Palace just never lose to Brighton at this rate. And then obviously you've got the FA Cup before the international break, and then after that you've got Brentford. So that's like, and then I think soon after that it's Bournemouth as well. So this is, I probably said it before, so I'm tying myself up in knots. But these are winnable games, and if Brighton really want to put their hand up and say, I want to get Europe, they've got to start getting a run of games together, because if not, the window opportunity is going to go like that, and it would be such a shame. But to find out more about our opposition this weekend, we'll speak to Jonty Colman of Football London from West Ham now. So I'm delighted to be joined by my old mucker, Jonty Colman, Football London's finest reporter, I think, who covers West Ham every single week. Jonty, how you doing?
Yeah, very well, mate. Thank you. How are you?
Yes, not too bad. So you're currently speaking to us from Manchester after West Ham's sadly FA Cup defeat to Manchester United. Let's just dive straight into that one. What were your thoughts on the game? And generally, are things improving for West Ham despite yesterday's loss?
Yeah, I think they are. I think if you look at the actual game, West Ham they were leading with 13 minutes to go, and were arguably, the better side on the night. They did make 4 changes, but 3 of those were from the side that beat Forest 4-0 last Saturday. But 3 of those were enforced. Fabianski and Kufal went off injured, and Danny Ings was cut-tied. And then the other one was Jarrod Bowen dropping to the bench. And again, that was sort of semi-enforced because he had a bit of a knock. So West Ham kind of went strong for it. And it was a pretty good performance. We had a few waves of attack in the first half. Mikel Antonio goes clear for on goal and absolutely wasted it, but straight at De Gea. Goes in 0-0 at half time, and you feel like West Ham are playing well, but Man United had all their big boys, if you like, on the bench. Rashford, Casemiro, a few others off the back of their Carabao Cup final win. So you thought that they would come on eventually. Benrahma made it 1-0 early in the second half, and Ten Hag, a bit like David Brent in the office, turn around and goes, "Go get me Rashford," brings him on straight away. And then Casemiro scores a header, gets ruled out, but it would prove to be a bit of a warning sign. Man United then get their equaliser, actually for a West Ham player, Nefer Gerd, headed in from a corner past Areola. Good finish, just sadly it was for a wrong team. But from that point on, you felt it was inevitable United would go get a win. Garnacho scores a brilliant goal in the 90th minute, and then Fred adds a third deep into stoppage time. 3-1 was a score I thought it flattered Man United. They probably deserved it by the end of the game. They probably deserved to win, but I think 3-1 was very generous. And, if you look before that sort of last 15 minutes or so, West Ham are probably the better side, and combination of that, the performance of Forest, I think, they are picking up. But obviously, we all know West Ham's terrible record against Brighton. So it's going to have to be some upturn in form to overcome that.
We'll get onto that weird sort of whatever it is. But yes, so going a little bit further back, obviously West Ham, by their lofty standards of getting into Europe the last couple of years, have had a very under par season. This is a very open-ended, vague question, but what would you say are the main reasons why West Ham have struggled, obviously sitting 16th in the Premier League at the moment?
It's an interesting one. I get asked this quite a lot, and I don't think there's one thing. I think it's a factor of a load of different things that just have come at a really bad time. On the pitch, you'd say that it's goals. It's definitely goals. There's a reason they spent 30 million on Gianluca Scamacca in the summer, and then they go and spend 12 million on Danny Ings in January. Scamacca's shown it in flashes. He can be a really good player, but he's had little knocks and then dips in form. Antonio's just looked bereft of goals for much of the season. Bowen, who we had to rely on in the second half of last season, has been off it as well. So, yeah, it's goals have been the glaring thing. I think if you look at that win over Forest, I think that was a big shock that they scored 4. I think it's the first time they've done that this season in all competitions. And yeah, they all actually came in the last 20 minutes of the game as well. So it was a bit of a mad end there. But yeah, obviously the signing of Danny Ings is helped with that. It was his full debut against Forest, and having not been able to play against United, you fully expect him to start against Brighton as well. They've had terrible luck with injuries. Trying to think, like Maxwell Cornet, for example, he makes his full Premier League debut 5 months ago, gets a calf injury, so he meant to miss a few weeks, and we still haven't seen him since. He is pretty close, and he might even make the squad at Brighton, but it's things like that. Nair for Gerd, he had a bit of a shocker at the end last night, but Barry Matt, he's been really good since coming back from the World Cup. He kind of missed all the season before the World Cup from an ankle injury he got in his second friendly for the club. So there's been that. Some of the players they signed, like Scamacca and Cornet and one or two others, they didn't really have a pre-season coming to West Ham, so they're kind of a bit behind. With the there was that international break last summer, there wasn't much time between the end of that and like pre-season, so that delayed a few players. So it's just a combination of all those things. They've had a few fine margins go against them, it's kind of a combination of things. On the pitch, it's certainly been goals. That's kind of the one you kind of look at. But yeah, off it, they've had a lot of injuries and, just a lot of little things that have they swung in their favour. It could be a very different season for them. I mean, that's domestically. I think the sort of one saving grace this season has been Europe. They've won all 8 games there. They're off to Cyprus a few days after playing Brighton. And that's probably certainly from a quality of opposition point of view, that's arguably the best draw they could have got. So, and they're probably going to end up in a European quarter-final again. So, yeah, domestically, it's just not been anywhere near as good as the last 2 years. But I think a lot of it is literally just down to taking chances, because defensively they've actually got quite a good record this season. So, I think their heaviest. I think last night was their joint heaviest defeat, 3-1. When they lost to Brighton, it's been. I think I've had 2 3-1s and quite a few 2-0s to be fair. But they haven't really got battered by a team or anything like that this season. It's just been when they've lost or looked out of it, they've managed to keep it reasonably tight.
In obviously the last couple of years, David Moyes, I guess, had the sort of moniker of the Moyesiah. Would you say he's a little bit at fault sometimes with maybe the tactical choices or the lineups, or how do you see it?
Sometimes, yeah. I think there's been a lot of games where, especially away at like the bigger clubs, they've looked a bit been passive or cautious. I think we saw that they played Tottenham away almost a fortnight ago now, and didn't really lay a glove on them, to be honest. And that was partly the formation, I think. They brought Flynn Downs back into, and he looks like a good player, but most of his minutes have come in Europe this season. He's not really played in the Premier League, but I think he started 4 games and 3 of those have been Liverpool away, Man United away, and Tottenham away. And yeah, you can see that there's kind of a plan to when he does that. I mean, partly it's because Lucas Paqueta's been injured in those games, but partly when he's done that, it's with a view to sort of like keep a really strong back line and midfield for like 60, 70 minutes and then throw a few attacking players on and try and nick it at the end. And yeah, he's got Moyes on paper has got an awful record away at the Big 4, Big 6. But even so, like against Man United and Liverpool, they could have got a point out of those games. They had chances late on. And again, I think at Anfield, Bowen misses a penalty in the first half, and then Souček goes so close to a late equaliser. I think Benrahma or Rice hit the post at Old Trafford late on in the league, and De Gea made 1 or 2 ridiculous saves. So, if they'd attacked those games even more, then it could have been quite different. Yeah, there's been a few interesting ones in terms of tactics and how to get the best out of his players. I think one dilemma he's had a lot this season is in midfield. He's wanted to try and get Rice, Souček and Paqueta to to sort of use all three in the best way possible. And I think I think the last couple of games he started to do that. Against Forest, it was a 4-3-3, which he's done the last two games. And I think we'll probably see that on Saturday, where Rice has played the deeper of the three and Souček and Paqueta sort of two number 8s either side of him. And that seems to have worked. It worked brilliantly against Forest in the end anyway. So, I think there's been certain games where you can sort of say that our boys didn't do the right thing here tactically, or, played someone you think, why are they playing? Or we look at a form or something. And so, there's probably part of that, but I don't think it's quite as much as some people make out.
You touched on it a little bit earlier. Can you just run through some of the team news for West Ham ahead of Brighton game, please?
Yeah, so obviously coming off a game last night, so there could be, stuff off the back of that. What do we know? Goalkeeper Lucas Fabianski, I think it'll be the first league game this season he doesn't play. He got a horrible injury against Forest. He's fractured his cheekbone and eye socket. It was so innocuous as well. He kind of went to gather a loose ball, and Felipe's left a knee on him, caught him on the side of the face, and so Areola's going to make his first league start of the season. He's played quite a lot of football outside of the Premier League, but we don't know how long Fabianski's going to be out, but it could be for much of the rest of the season. Kufal, he's had a good run of form recently. He missed last night with a heel injury. We don't know how serious it is, whether he's going to be back for Saturday. I don't know, but he's looked in good form right back. Kurt Zuma and Maxwell Cornier, they've both had sort of fairly lengthy layoffs. Zuma's missed about 6 weeks with a thigh injury. Coincidentally, he got that on with his first game back from knee surgery. So he's had a bit of bad luck of it recently. But he's been back in training ahead of the last 2 games, so you think he is really close, unless he's had a fresh setback. Cornier as well, he's missed 5 months, but again, he's been in full training the last couple of games. What else? Jared Bowen started on the bench last night. I think it was just a precaution. I think he had a minor knock on his sort of shin ankle, but Moyes rarely doesn't start Bowen. I think even when he's rotated teams, Bowen's been one of the few who still played. So that was a bit of a surprise, but he's probably got one eye on Brighton, thinking, I need him more for this game. So, probably just a precaution there. I think that's it, unless there's anything off the back of last night that we don't know about.
Cool. And the final one, sort of a double header. So one. I just want to, obviously this is your first season covering West Ham, but I spoke to I know a couple of West Ham mates, and they just are baffled by the sort of the hold that Brighton have over them. So first off, I want to get your thoughts on that. I think it's 6 wins or 5 wins and 6 draws since Brighton got promoted to the Premier League. I want to get your thoughts on that, and then also if you can give me your score prediction for this weekend's game.
Sure. It's weird, isn't it? It's really, really weird. I mean, these things do sort of crop up. Whether it's teams struggling against other teams, or players have a certain club that they always seem to score against. These things do happen. I think from memory, you can happily correct me here, but the game right at the start of the season, Trossard just absolutely ran the show, and obviously West Ham have got the boost of not having to play against him, although, there's been a few brilliant sort of young Brighton stars that have emerged since then. So, it doesn't really matter too much. Like some Matoma, Ferguson, West Ham didn't have to worry about them back in August. It's just a weird record. It's quite interesting. The under-21s played each other on Monday night, and West Ham won, tweeting about it, and had a few people like, what? Not Brighton, surely. even at under-21s level, they were like, no, we can't beat Brighton, surely. So hopefully, for a West Ham point of view, it's a precursor for Saturday. But it's just a weird record, But it'd be interesting. It'll be obviously the first matchup between Moyes and De Zerbi, because of course Graham Potter is still in charge when we last met. So it'd be a very interesting one. From a West Ham point of view, definitely wanting to end that sort of hoodoo, if you like. Score prediction. I think West Ham are picking up. Obviously, Brighton did win at midweek, but it looks like they're in a little bit of a dip from sort of their best they've been, past a couple of months. I'm going to go optimistic and go for a 1-1 draw, and I think that would be quite a good result for West Ham to come away from there. A, because of their record, and B, because, they haven't got many points away this season. I think they've only won 1 league game away and got 3 draws. So their away record hasn't been good. So, I think a point away at Brighton, the way they're going this season, would be a good result there.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see so how sort of West Ham set up if they, if they do the kind of what the cool kids say, the low block or that sort of thing, then that they might be able to have some success on the counter. But obviously West Ham on their day, if they click, they have more than enough players to hurt Brighton. But yeah, I think I'm going to enjoy it. I think Brighton aren't quite at their best. So I think I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. If I could, I'd give it 1.5. One, but I think I'm going to go 1. But, yeah, Jonty, thanks so much for coming on. Safe journey back to London after Manchester. So yeah, thanks guys. Just finally, do you want to say where people can sort of find your work and on social media and that sort of thing?
Yeah, sure. So I'm at Jonty Colman as it's spelled on the video. You can also find all my work on the West Ham page on Football London.
Great. Right. Thanks a lot.